Been so many things happening in the last few weeks, well, months, but intensifying the last few weeks, that, you know, people that aren't watching world news, world events, they're blind. There's something really seriously going to affect them shortly this year, I'm pretty sure. The Middle East situation, the Crimean situation, the U.S. economy, there's so many things that, as I said to you before we went on air, Holly and I both just kind of want to go out somewhere and stick our head in the sand and wait till it all blows over, because it's getting intense out there. I think for the Americans, it's well known that we're a society that consumes much more energy per capita than the rest of the world, and that we kind of use the dollar as our, you know, kind of like a god here. I mean, people, you know, look at things economically and that's it. And so that's the great weakness of the United States. Impacting the U.S. economy and the value of the U.S. dollar, hence, will be the thing that I think will take America to its knees, in addition to probably nuclear attacks onshore here. And this year, 2014, is just a pivotal year in a lot of political international situations, with Obama selling us down the river and Israel at the same time, our supposed defense of Israel. We're going to see America punished greatly in the near future. This year, I'm pretty sure. The value of the U.S. dollar, I mean, they're already talking about, at the IMF, about making two U.S. dollars, one that you use domestically, you know, onshore, and one offshore, and each will have a different real value in gold or silver, whatever they relate it to. And that's because, you know, the dollar is so heavily in debt to China and other major players in the world that really we can't be the dollar of the world, you know, the currency of the world, the fiat currency even. So that's kind of what's on a lot of people's mind that are watching this, is how that's going to play here in America. And as soon as we're weakened thoroughly, you know, at the whims of the globalists, I think we're going to see America attacked, as I say, in several major cities with nuclear devices, whether they be on the ground or in the air, you know, producing EMP effects and wiping out electronics, or, you know, direct incinerating type bombs over major population centers. However they do it, or both, I think America will be thrown into chaos. And certainly we're looking for what happens with treaties and agreements with Israel and the United States. And the way it's going, you know, we're hurting Israel, our government is here. And the more we hurt them, the more we can expect likewise to be hurt here by the judgment of Hashem, of God. And, you know, we've done everything we can, Holly and I, to help people over the last few years get ready for this, to prepare to endure in situ wherever they are. You know, the shortage of food, the warfare, the bombings, the demise of the dollar suddenly, the collapse of the share market. We've tried to get them prepared for that, and have certainly done darn near everything we've said in our books and lectures to get ourselves ready, and even some of our neighbors that we've been working on for a few years to try to get them to rise up and see what's happening around them.
Right. You know, there's such an inclination in the United States, I think. We've lived under a bubble for our entire lives, and in living under that bubble, we've grown insensitive to what things are really like out there in the real world. And of course, we also have a media here that is so incredibly suppressed and massaged that we're only getting the news that the people in charge want us to get. That's one thing I noticed with my wife when we went to Israel back in 2010. The minute we left American soil, we got just an amazing amount of information that you know, we didn't that we would never have heard in America. Bonnie, you got something to say?
Do you see a power struggle now between the IMF, the Western banksters, the fiat based currencies of the West, and the increasingly gold, silver-based currencies of the East, the floating the idea of a BRICS bank which would run competition with the IMF, and the war in Crimea. And now, some are wondering if Obama is trading, Syria for Crimea. That somehow we're going to get a foothold in there. If we can't have Korea, we'll take Syria. Do you see a power struggle in the demonic kingdom now between East and West?
Well, I don't know whether it's, I guess it would be certainly in the demonic kingdom which rules the planet, but the other thing that I look at, to answer your question, is the purchases of gold and silver, and China and Russia have been buying or acquiring through the Crimean situation huge amounts of gold. I think was it China? I think boosted their gold production or gold purchase last month by about 30%. So that does tell you that we're moving rapidly toward a gold or a precious metal based world system, because they're going to collapse America. And Russia and China have a pact. They've had it kind of in the back room for over a decade, but it's become serious now. And so Russia and China, a Sino-Soviet agreement, has placed America at great risk, and they've the Russians and the Chinese have agreed to take America down and to work in concert to do that. Having said that, Putin's move into Crimea and, eventually into the rest of Ukraine, to me signals that he's building a big base of operations that he can actually access the Mediterranean through, the straits there, to, do things in the Middle East when it's time, and it's far enough away that he can possibly shield himself against Israeli defenses rather than trying to do it at Cyprus. All these moves are just they're indicative of certainly a war between the East and the West. The globalists have not been able to control China since Rockefeller went in there. I mean, it's just they've tried, they've done their best, and for a period of time it looked like they had succeeded. But there is this division, and we know that from prophecy in the New Testament that the kings of the East, which will include China and some of their affiliates, will move toward the Middle East after the Gog-Magog conflict. I'm pretty sure that's when it occurs. And that can't happen with the United States being a major defensive player and supporter of Israel. So America has to be taken out of the equation as part of this conflict between the East and the West. The Chinese are still operating on the rules of war, Sun Tzu, and those are a derivative of Genghis Khan's war philosophy, and that is go amongst your enemies, like Russia, United States, those are major powers, and fight, make your enemies fight between themselves until they've beaten themselves to a pulp, and then march in and pick up the pieces and collect the whole pie. And so China, the sleeping giant, is now awake but lurking in the shadows for an action toward the Middle East and, of course, toward Israel. So, yeah, I do think that demonically and physically in this world they are in competition, the powers of the economic East and the economic West.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Bonnie. Go ahead.
Can you envision a final global empire? I mean, the globalists have been setting up this final play for global power for, 600 to 700 years, I would imagine. As far as my recollection of history, can you imagine now that? I mean, is it possible in what you know about prophecy that the leaders of the final global kingdom would not be a Western bankster fiat money type model, but rather would be with the East in domination and having absorbed the weakening, bankrupt West?
Well, certainly the West is corrupting itself. I mean, they've gotten fat and lazy over all their prosperity. But China is having its own set of problems internally as far as natural resources, air pollution, food, population overbreeding, all kinds of things. They've got their own internal problems, not the least of which is the pollution due to the manufacturing they're doing willy-nilly to get money from the rest of the world. Now, China will be a major player in this new world government, but it's going to be a very fragile and short-lived government, as we know. The United States is probably not going to be a major player in this. There won't be much of it left after the decimation that's headed our way. I sometimes relate the United States today to the Babylon spoken of in the New Testament, which would be destroyed in 1 hour by fire. Certainly sounds like a nuclear event to me, but whatever. The major powers are going to be, the European Union type countries and China and the Middle Eastern oil exporters. The whole world, even now, runs on energy. The real economic driver is energy and the cost of it. If you stop and think about it, food production, energy, electricity production, commerce, everything depends, communications, everything depends on having adequate energy to either acquire the energy sources, like, to acquire the coal or oil, that kind of stuff. And if we don't have the energy under control planet-wide, it's going to create or continue to create disparity between the international economies, nation to nation.
Right.
The Middle East, there are huge oil reserves, oil and gas, offshore of Israel between their territorial waters in the Mediterranean and to the Lebanon. And there's also huge oil pools underneath Israel. What has not been made publicly, officially anyway, about the oil under Israel is that the pool of oil is deep, and we're talking several miles down, but it's so huge it dwarfs all of the Arab nations' oil fields. For some time behind the scenes, the OPEC group over there have said to Israel, if you find that, if you tap that oil well, or that oil pool down deep, you'll be stealing oil from our wells, which are higher. And if you do that, we'll declare war. Now, a rabbi friend of mine who is a physicist also, a trained physicist, was telling me about this from his visits to Israel. And he said that the Israeli response was, look, all you guys have shallow oil wells compared to what we're talking about. And yes, they do connect to our oil pool underneath Israel, but it's because it's pressurized that you're using our oil. It's blowing it up to your shallow wells. So technically you're using ours. So it's tit for tat, but energy is the main driver. And nuclear energy is not going to be, for the time being anyway, is not going to be the wise decision. Most of the Western nations are power-based with nuclear supplies, and as such are quite exposed to all kinds of natural disaster dramas. Take Fukushima, for instance. That's just a small example. Right. So all this is energy-driven. The economics of the world are energy-driven. We do not have life without movement, energy, in all fields. So energy is the thing we watch, and that's why I can see China standing off, waiting till Russia, the United States, the OPEC nations, all in the Middle Eastern area, beat each other to death in warfare and are weakened. And that happens quickly in this day and age with the technologies we have. And then China will just come right across the Himalayas and move troops by the millions by train and into the Middle East to occupy the oil fields. I think that's the time when we will see the much-touted Battle of Armageddon in the Megiddo Valley there. And there's a reason for that, because there's a lot of oil under that area.
Yep. Stan, we have a caller. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am. Boker Tov. This is Kenny.
Hi, Kenny.
How are you doing?
How are you? Oh, God is so good. He is so good. I have a wonderful wife who will go to battle for me and pray for me and set me straight, and people like you guys on the radio that really restore my faith, because I go back in and I'll study the Word and things like that. But other words than that, I have some Shar Shalom today. Can't complain.
Do you have any questions for Stan, by chance?
I do, Stan. I do. Stan, I was reading the book by Jonathan Kahn,
The Harbinger,
The Harbinger.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And just by my decision, or what I have come to find out, the way the economic collapse will happen, and just by the 7 years, and in 2015, this is just me speaking about maybe an economic collapse and things like that, because we're running out of oil. Not oil, but the gold and things like this, and we're so far in debt that would collapse us and ruin our military stuff and things like that to bring us to that brink of war, or just come in and just take us over just because it can.
Is that a question? Sorry, I didn't hear the question mark.
Yes, about the oil. I mean, our economic collapse, you think that might happen in 2015? I guess that was my question. I'm not asking you to predict it, but I'm just from what I see, do you think that could be an economical collapse in 2015 with the way our money situation is?
Kenny, I'll be surprised if we make it to 2015 before the economy collapses. Holly and I have been guests of the Hopi Nation, of the elders in the Shangopavi tribe in Second Mesa 2 or 3 times. And they've taken us into their confidence in private meetings with their spiritual leaders. And even though this is not predominantly, let's say maybe half and half Christian and traditional Hopi faith or religion, they have their elders who see into the future, are allowed to see things, and dream visions. And right. One of the things that they're very insistent upon is that very shortly the United States will undergo civil disorder, brother against brother, on many fronts, not just rich or poor, black or white, or, a Democrat or Republican, or, Muslim or Christian or Jew. It's going to be a multifaceted collapse into anarchy. And they say in the process of that Russia, China, and some of the Middle Eastern countries will actually send troops into the United States for a short period of time. There will be many, many, many people, over 80% of the country will be killed in one way or another, either starvation or bio-warfare, biochemical warfare, or nukes direct. There are about 120 cities that we know of that are targeted, have been for some time. Anyway, the Hopi say that this will pretty much take America out of the active political arena internationally, and that the troops will withdraw. They will leave what they've invaded because it will not be habitable. And and that survivor groups from America will bond together and make their way toward the Hopi, toward the northern Arizona land that they occupy at the moment, to join with the Hopi to form a new tribe of man and move up into the Four Corners region of where Utah and Colorado and New Mexico, where they join, or Arizona. Right. And this does tell me that we're almost at that point where I can see civil war erupting over some small spark, whether it be a Muslim killing, a Christian killing, or something. There'll be something that will finally trip the trigger, and the resistance groups, one way or another, will fight each other. So yes, I see that the dollar will collapse, and I'm pretty sure it will start this year with the situation in the Middle East. What we watch is how America deals with Israel, and when it hurts Israel, we're going to get hurt.
Exactly. So one other question that I have for you, Mr. Stan. How do you guys get your information on this? Is it besides, or how do you get your information on that? How would I be able to go and search some of this information out?
When you say this information, kind of help me out there. Which information in particular, on what subject? Well,
just I'm learning so much about the history, about the militaries coming in and fighting and taking away and coming in and wiping out 90% or 80% of American people, or Jewish, or whatever it is. So I want to know, how can I research some of this information to know for sure on my part?
Okay. Kenny, when you say know for sure, you put a reasonable amount of trust in certain resources. We all do. You say, well, I think that this source is telling me the truth, and you gamble, because our whole knowledge base is built upon those who went before us to get information together. And it's polluted. I mean, it happens.
Right.
It's human nature, but you're trying to correlate things to what's in the Bible with the Torah.
Okay, don't go away.
KPJC Salem.
Here we are. We're back. This is Bonnie and Jean on the Thursday Morning Show here at Hebrew Nation Radio. With us, we have a stop what you're doing, sit down and listen to your radio kind of guest, Stan Deyo. If you don't know Stan and Holly Deyo, please go to standeyo.com. Please put it on your bookmark it. Read it daily. You will get especially the geophysical, news, plus a lot of other news. You'll get to meet their dogs. You'll get to see Holly's funny videos of dogs, heartwarming. How are your new dogs, Stan, by the way?
Oh, well, they own the house now then. They're fine. We've got little, well, not little, but medium-sized dog beds or pallets for them with surrounds in the basement, in the office here with us, and upstairs. And let's see, they got 1, 2, 3. They've got, and then in the garage, they've got 3 really nice sleeping areas, and they tell us when we can go to bed. And when it's time for us to have a snack so that they can as well. I mean, they're clever. They're just clever.
They look like a miniature Doberman pincers, but I know they're not mini pins. They're what breed are they again, Stan?
They're Australian Kelpies, cattle dogs.
Yeah.
And
okay.
We had to fence in about 3/4 of an acre out the back here up to the house to let them have free run.
Okay, and you had to put a cow back there?
No, they heard, believe it or not, they heard birds, airplanes. They will bark and chase an airplane that's 2 miles high across the backyard. And helicopters, they let us know when they're coming. And they'll also herd rabbits when they can get to them. They do love what we call the R's, because if we say rabbit, the actual word, they go crazy. But they're very clever, very clever.
Hey, we have the caller. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Buddy.
What about gophers, Gene? They go after gophers?
Gophers? No. Well, I take it back. Yeah, it's kind of like a gopher. It's what do they call it? A vole here. It's like a little mole underground that shoves up dirt and then hides underneath it.
A marmot? Is it a marmot?
Yeah. Actually, that's the word we use. We say varmint to them and point at the dirt, and they will dig a 2-foot square hole immediately.
Oh,
that's amazing. Up here in Oregon, the locals call them rock chucks.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, and they're marmots.
California is infected with prairie dogs. I mean, it's just amazing. You can see entire meadows, entire city blocks that are empty, where the prairie dogs have decided to populate it because humans haven't come in yet. And it's just really a mess. It's really huge.
Now we're getting to the meat of the issue. Let's go to our dogs.
We have a caller.
We do have a caller.
Hello there, Boker Tov.
Boker Tov?
Boker Tov.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Mm-hmm.
You're on the air.
Thank you. I just wanted to take this chance to thank Stan for his website and his ministries and all that he has done to get information out. Most of my friends in our worship group check your website daily and just use it as a wonderful resource. And I just wanted to let you know that we have bought Holly's book, Dare to Prepare by the Cases. Well, we think that we have enough and we need to order another case or two. So I just wanted to thank you for everything and for being on Hebrew Nation Radio this morning. It's a treat to us.
Thank you for that. And let me underscore the fact that the website that you go to is done 6 days a week by Holly, and that's her baby. She gets up probably 2 or 3 hours before I do and starts gathering news from the sources that aren't in the United States primarily, but to get you news a couple days ahead of time before the national news people pick it up. So it's her work, and it's good.
She does an outstanding job, and just please let her know that we appreciate her bringing us those kinds of issues, and we just feel like you're such a dependable source on the real news.
Thank you very much. We do talk about these things, and she's mainly the go-to person in our household. If I get an email or look on the internet and find something that might be interesting news, I say, Holly, do you know about this? Is it valid? And if she doesn't, she'll say, let me check it out. And I can be sure when she comes back and says, good or not, that that's the truth. It's either bogus or it's good stuff. So she's a great researcher.
We don't know what we would do without those types of resources for us, so we thank you very much.
Where are you from? Caller? Where are you from? Area code 512?
I'm near Austin, Texas.
Oh,
hey,
wonderful.
My old stomping grounds.
Thank you for calling in. Thank you so much. And you're listening to us on the internet.
Yes, I am. And thank you for having Stan on.
Oh, you're so welcome. Yeah. Well, don't miss the Thursday morning show.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Blessings, sister.
See you. Shalom.
Bye-bye.
Great. Okay, Stan, we were talking during the break about the prophecy that you made recently.
Well, it was going back a few years. I get dream visions kind of infrequently from the Lord, but let's say that when they do happen, that you are there, and it's imprinted on your mind, thereafter.
Hello?
Are you there?
Hang on, caller. Just a second. Stan was talking. Just a moment. Okay. And I've seen enough of these things, these dream visions occur, happen after I've had them, sometimes months or years down the road, but that I know that they're absolutely accurate. And one of them, which came, probably 15 years ago, was I was in the air over the North Pacific above the coastline of, say, Washington, Oregon. And I was looking at Washington, Oregon, and downwards, southwards toward Mexico City, and then the area in between. And the Cascade mountain range at Cascadia connects down through the Rockies down into the Sierra Madres through various fault lines. And what I saw was between 6 and 8. They were alternating off and on, but between 6 and 8 volcanoes from Washington State all the way down to Mexico City, where Popocatépetl is, erupting simultaneously. And the eruptions were throwing large amounts of water vapor and ash all over the West Coast. So bad that people that suddenly realized we've got to get out of here and get across the Rockies, when they tried to drive around curves and up hills and stuff, their cars were sliding off to the side and down into ravines because of the moist ash that was acting like a lubricant on all the roads. And people were panicking because they couldn't get out, and the whole West Coast was starting to fracture with these volcanic eruptions. So that has not happened yet, but I'm seeing little signs of volcanic activity increasing at, say, northwestern Yellowstone Park and down in Mexico. So I'm watching this fairly closely to see when it's going to start. But volcanic eruptions don't just say, all at once, and in 30 minutes they all go off together. But there will be a chain of these, and they will continue to erupt. I had my brother and his wife, or his family, they lived in Tacoma at the time, and I saw him in the dream vision. He's ex-Special Forces, so he's pretty cool. But I said to him, I saw you in this trying to escape and go eastward when it started, and your car slid off, and you were so far down without any rope or anything that you couldn't get back up on the road, and you were trapped. So you either carry a rope in your car or move. And years passed, and now then he's moved over to Maine, which I'm not sure is any better for another reason, but still, it wasn't one that I was shown in Dream Vision. So I feel confident that, happy at least that I told him, and that for whatever reason he's in a safer zone than the West Coast. Yes.
Anyway, that was a dream vision.
Wow.
Yeah, Stan, we have 2 callers lined up here.
Okay, let's take one.
Area code 719. Hello? Yes.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we have a question for Stan.
Yeah, hello, everybody. I was just reading yesterday. It was really interesting. Stan's talking about the Hopi prophecy. I was reading about the Temple Institute using a Navajo weaving technique to make the blue robe of the high priest. And in this article, they say that the Navajo believe that they will be spiritual leaders just before Mashiach returns.
Well, the Navajos surround the Hopi, physically in their territory, and the two do work fairly close.
What was that, caller?
So do you believe, that these are the kind of people we should be looking forward to as leaders when we near the end and when stuff starts to happen?
Do I believe that the Navajo and the Hopi are?
Yeah, that we should look to them for leadership, like in the greater Exodus type of deal.
I don't know whether you should or not, but that's what they've seen, is that small groups of survivors of the non-Hopi or non-people, like the Europeans that occupy the country now, small groups of them will survive what is coming and will make their way toward the Hopi and hence the Navajo, those that survive. There's going to be a great deal of flooding in the Arizona region due to a number of factors, but it will force the indigenous people there, the Hopi and the Navajo, to move northward into drier land in southern Colorado and upwards toward Beulah Valley, which is an old Indian haunt from years ago. But people will look to them, I'm sure, for practical experience about how to live without all the mod cons and power that we have now. The elders told me that, told Holly and I, that there would be friction between the European-based population and the indigenous as they form a new tribe of man in that area. And the young people would, a few of the hot bloods on both sides would fight, but that they would settle it down over a period of time. So, yes, whether we should or not, that's what's going to happen according to them, is that they will be helping the survivors to rebuild and start again. Which, the caller, does remind me of the dream that allegedly came to, or the dream vision to George Washington, which was written down years later by his servant, his manservant, who was told this by George Washington. In the end, at that time, which, the United States wasn't what it is now all across the continent, Washington's dream vision showed that there would be the clouds of invasion, dark clouds that would cover the United States, and war would break out between the invaders and the indigenous, or the American population at that time. And that when it looks like all the survivors have been cornered into kind of the Colorado region in the middle of the United States, that there would be an angel of light that would come down and part the clouds and defend the survivors when they look like all is lost. And that coincidentally is in the Colorado region, which is where the Hopi say they will be going to join, with the Americans, the European Americans that have joined with them. That's where they will go to build a new nation of man there, a new tribe of man. Not for the whole planet, but just for, North America. So those kind of dovetail together. Again,
I'm so
should, but that's the way it'll be.
Yep, I'm so thrilled to hear that living in Colorado is a really good idea.
Yeah, I live here too.
Yeah, right. Where do you live, caller?
In Pueblo.
Okay, so you live in Pueblo, not just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Stan.
He'd be within 12 miles of my house.
I visit Stan's website. I really appreciate all you and Holly do. And I listen to you quite often, too.
Well, thank you. Whereabouts in Pueblo do you live? What suburb?
Northside, University Park.
Oh, yeah, just down down Highway 50 from us.
Yeah.
Yep, a hop, skip, and a jump. Well, thank you, caller. Really appreciate your calling in.
Thank you very much. Bye.
You bet. Bye. Area code 260. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Yes.
Good morning.
Do you have something for Stan?
I had a question. How do you guys see this happening? Is it going to be the war part first, the economic part first? And how far after do you think the greater exodus would be? Are we still talking 5 years or greater than that after all this begins? I mean, how long are we going to be at prey, more or less?
Afraid, did you say?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Do you have any kind of ideas as to the scenario of how all this is going to happen?
Well, I think that before Russia really becomes involved in the invasion of Israel, that the United States has to be removed as a major player militarily and economically in the world. And that'll have to happen rather quickly, because we can see the tensions building in the Middle East. We know that Iran is, if not now nuclear capable, that will be very, very shortly this year, which, Israel has to address preemptively, because there's no way that Israel could survive a first strike and then go back at it. So that the situation demands that the United States be crippled and just taken out of the game, which, if we can assume that America is the Babylon, the economic Babylon or whatever it's mentioned in the book of the Revelation of John, then Babylon is destroyed in a very short period of time, in 1 hour, it says. Whether that's literal or symbolic, I'm not sure, but in fire. And certainly a nuclear strike on the United States would start fire, in many places, uncontrollable fire, and America would just be destroyed. And certainly America is kind of like Babylon in that we've got that female goddess statue called the Statue of Liberty. And, we've run roughshod over the nations of the world, controlling them since World War II, economically and militarily, being the world police force. And we have gone against, we've become like a prostitute, the whore of Babylon, moving away from our God and his teachings. And, that's just evident in the news today, where we take God and Christianity and, and Judaism, we take them out of our everyday icons and statues and practices, which is definitely turning away from God, like the whore of Babylon would do, being like a wife, but turning away and going after other gods. So that tells me, okay, America's going to be the next thing on the agenda, and America's major weak point at this point is the economy, the dollar, the value of the U.S. dollar and U.S. economy. And so that will be the strike, and I think that strike will come before or at the same time that nuclear devices are used on America. And, it's kind of, I get up every morning and say, well, we're here still. It wasn't today, but it's close.
I understand completely. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I have another one if I can.
Sure.
I live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I'm just kind of wondering, is there any place within the United States that's safer than the others, or should we be looking at going in a certain location, or
well,
does it matter?
It's like this. There are less prudent places to live, but no absolutely safe places. And I say that seriously, because now we've been asked this, Holly and I, for probably 15, 16 years on a regular basis by folks. And there are no absolutely safe places from all potential threats that we might be able to know about or anticipate. So what might be a reasonably prudent place for one person, say an elderly person versus a young person, might be that the elderly person needs to have a place that has, medical assistance or hospitals close by or oxygen supplies. And for the young person, it might be where he can get work, and provide for his family that way in a reasonably, say, crime-free, geophysically not too damaging or threatening area. But these are all kind of aimed at the individual and what he thinks he can deal with. Some areas, like, well, Holly's got a USB drive, a flash drive, and a CD-ROM called Prudent Places USA. And she analyzes, graphically you can see this, plus what she describes, what threats are in each county, and in a lot of cases in each city that's a major city, what things you would be threatened with in that area. And so you say, okay, this town is a threat because it's along the road that they use to take nuclear waste to the disposal site, and it might, rupture or whatever. Well, big deal, people can deal with that. So that one person would say, it doesn't X out this town for me. I could use it if that's the only threat it's got. And others might say, this town is not close to work, or the cost of housing is skyrocketing crazy. So you see what I'm saying? No safe place, but less or more prudent than others, okay? And you have to decide based on what information you can collect from, like the CD-ROM, Prudent Places USA, or I think there's one or two other e-books that have been written or published. Skousen's got one. But between the two of these, I think you cover every possible base you can with what databases are available.
Could you name those again? One was Prudent Places USA.
Right. Yeah, just go to Stan Deyo, STANDEYO, standeyo.com, and when you hit the front page, there will be a number of books and e-books and printed books that we publish or distribute. And look for the one that says, Prudent Places. What will it do here? Let me just see. I think it has a picture of the, just give me a second here. What's on the front page there? I'm forgetting what picture we've got of it. Yeah, it'll show an hourglass of blood red sand hanging over the earth, casting a shadow across America. And it'll say all new, and it's our brand new release this year. And it's currently just right up to date as far as we could get from various resources, and we trust the resources. So anyway, that's that one. And the other one, Cleon Skousen, Skousen, I can't remember the name of his book, which is something like, Clever Places, and he uses a slightly different attack to help you choose where to go. But at this point, I'm not sure whether major moves are in order for people in the United States, because, or planet-wide even. I'm thinking the good Lord has us placed where we are, and for a reason, and whether that be for safety or for function on our behalf. I think we're so close to everything coming unglued, you don't want to be in the middle of a move. But, at least you could find out about what your threats are in your area and start preparing to deal with those.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I appreciate
thank you, Colin. Really appreciate it. Thanks. Area code 503. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, that's a local one.
Yes. Thank you so much for being with us on the program, Sam.
Thank you.
I would like to, maybe when we come back in the second hour, if you could address, I know where there's an absolutely safe place, and it is in Jehovah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. And, all of everything that has been said is absolutely wonderful. But I do know that the worst thing that we can do is act out of fear, because then we're in the enemy's hand when we are fearful. And so I would like to focus somewhat on what we can do. A lot of us are not in a position to where we can move, but what can we do where we're at? Like we've been feeling a push to get a little wood stove, so that we'll have heat. And
right.
We are by water, and so getting a water purification system where we can, haul the water up with a bucket and clean it.
What kind are you doing or getting?
I'm not sure what the name of it is, but Dave Matthews at Hebrew Nation Radio has a unit that they found out about after Katrina.
Right.
And all the horrible stuff that happened up there on the Gulf, and it cleans a huge amount of water, actually, enough to take care of a little community. And so I'm thinking the little mobile court that we live in, that would be an awesome resource, even for the whole community. Right. And we have some food storage, maybe only a couple months, but the thing of it is, we may find ourselves in a place where we don't have any of that. We might be away from home and can't even get home. And so if our trust is in Jehovah and hearing his voice, and that's the paramount thing, is learning to hear his voice, and maybe upgrading to bond servant status, so that we will be we will be in first communication with him, and be able to be a resource for the people that way too.
Okay, after the break, we'll come back at that.
Thank you, caller.
Yes, good point, caller. Thank you.
Welcome to the Hebrew Nation Morning Show, where we discuss the biblical roots of our people and our faith. Link to Accurate Precious Metals Refineries, our morning show sponsor at HebrewNationOnline.com. Lines are open, so call 503-967-3001 if you would like to join in the conversation. You can also chat with us online in the morning show chat room at HebrewNation.net.
Okay, we're back for another hour with Stan Deyo. Another absolutely mind-boggling hour. And, for those of you out there that have been listening and thinking about, it seems like all we're coming up with are man's answers to these problems. Stan really wanted to make sure that that you know that he certainly looks at the participation, just like the last caller said, the participation of Abba directly in what's going on here. And so, Stan, did you have something you wanted to say about that?
Yes, we've had a few people emailing and phoning us over the last 3 or 4 months now, telling us that they had been either seen it in dream vision or had it revealed to them otherwise, that during the crisis coming, the bride of the Messiah, the believers, will need the help of the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, and that they saw, in one case, they saw like golden envelopes coming down from the sky over the outside of the believers and enveloping them. And in another report, they said that they saw that the believers were sitting around a table, a wooden table somewhere, not in a normal home, but out somewhere in the boonies. Right. And they had plates in front of them, which were empty of food. But then suddenly the Ruach HaKodesh manifested food for them, whether it was manna or whatever, I don't know. But they were fed in their exile. So I think what this is telling us is this. Do not be given over to a spirit of fear, like the caller said. Secondly, depend on the Ruach HaKodesh once you have done all that you can, physically as a human, to make to make yourself able to endure what is coming. And I think that will mean a getaway bag, a
go bag,
a go bag
Yeah.
with whatever you need to get out and to be mobile.
Right.
I don't think that means like a mobile home. I think it means how you can handle it on foot.
Right, exactly. I agree with you completely. And one thing that the caller mentioned too, making sure that you can hear the Master's voice. I think that really even a better way of describing that is making sure that you know which voice that you're hearing is the Master's voice.
Absolutely.
Because there are lots of voices out there would be more than happy for you to think that they're the Master's voice. I think that's a huge part of it. You
must test the spirits.
Absolutely, all the time. And in fact, that's got to be something that you have to be practiced at doing. And that's something we need to understand, that we can't put that off till a future time. Now's the time, and we really need to be paying attention. So, and then what about some of the things that the upcoming world government seems to be doing? Like, I've heard different people talk about UFOs and aliens and things like that, and it appears to me that there seems to be more of that kind of activity happening now than there used to be. Or at least it's becoming more apparent.
Yes, I agree. The long-term plan, which I wrote about in the Cosmic Conspiracy first time in 1978, is for a deception to be put upon mankind to accept Satan and his man, but to accept Satan as God, as Messiah, and as the Son of God, but he's not. And this deception has to be clever to fool even the very elect, if such were possible. And here's why. For it to work, we've had the Bible for, in one form or another for 1,500 years or so. Well, even in the spoken version for 2,000 years. But
right.
We've been warned about this deception. We've been warned about the bad guy, Satan approaching and his Antichrist ruling the world and that kind of stuff. So we are expecting to see a bad guy, Antichrist, appear, and we're expecting our Messiah to come and get rid of him and to bring peace, love, and harmony, etc., to the planet. So we're expecting that. So the devil knows that. Satan knows that. And he says, all right, look, okay, I'll give them, what they're expecting, and that will deceive them. So to do that, he has to have a false bad guy, a false Antichrist, which I think is probably something like Obama, because Obama just doesn't fit the bill for Antichrist as far as strength or cleverness or anything else.
Admiration.
Yeah, that's true, because look at the nations of the world. They think he's a fool.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So he doesn't fit that bill, but Satan will use him probably, or I don't see any other person on the world front that comes to mind. He's so obviously anti-Christian, anti-Jewish that, he is the front man. So someone has got to come and depose him, or dispose him, sorry. And Satan is going to do that with his man, who is going to be the eventual Antichrist that leads the planet. And the flying saucer technology and that kind of stuff is fitting right in with this, because beings, humanoids, whether they be our height or taller or whatever, that come in these UFOs and say, look, the world is in trouble. We can help you. In fact, we'll get rid of that Obama-type character and all these little gray critters and stuff you've heard about that have been abducting and molesting humans. They're from another planet, and they're bad news. We can get rid of that for you. And so Satan's people come in these chariots of, light, these flying saucers, and impress us because they're from off the planet. They're here to help us to get rid of the people like the banksters and the anti-Christian behavior of Obama and his ilk, and the little grays. They'll get rid of them in one massive sweep. And what people won't know is that, okay, Satan set up the Obama types. Satan set up the grays, created them as biological robots, and the lie about our elder brothers from space. And people who are not studied in this, who have not opened their eyes to what the prophecies say and what's happening around us, will be fooled. They will think, they're here, like in the movie V, where human-like people came in their flying saucers and were all over the major cities of the earth, and they said, we come in peace, we mean you no harm, and we'll give you cancer cures and all kinds of things for energy. And everybody says, oh, it's so great, they aren't going to eat us, they're tremendous. And in the back room in V, you see that they are really reptilians wrapped in a human-type body, and that they do actually enjoy eating humans, for whatever that has to do with prophecy. But and they were being fooled by this deceptive reptilian race. And whether these people coming to us now reptilian or not, whether they have DNA that's got, snake scales in their skin or not, doesn't really matter. They're going to come posing as messengers of light and as little g God, the head of it, and his people. And people will accept it here on earth, because the alternative is just going to be too horrible to contemplate if they're not believers. I'm not frightened. I don't encourage people to be frightened by this. We've been expecting this to come to a head. I've been expecting it for the last 2 years. This year, if it's not this year, then next year, I think we're going to see it, because the proliferation of UFO reports and abductions and all kinds of stuff is upon us. It's laying the groundwork, so don't be deceived by alien saviors that come. They've set up the game plan to look like they are the real Messiah, or he is the real Messiah and his angels. So it's going to be very clever. And they may even show you like holographic images or videos of the crucifixion of Jesus, and stuff that we couldn't obtain now. But they'll say, "Yeah, look, we were there. We were back in the Garden of Eden," and well, that's true. Satan was, but all this kind of stuff will convince the unwary. So
right. So the whole thing will be a counterfeit. I mean, both sides. In other words, they'll create this whole thing to suit our expectations.
Absolutely.
Okay, I get that. Now, what do you think about the blood moon tetrad?
The blood moon tetrad. Well, it is there, and we have had tetrads, in the past, not frequently, but these are mainly for signs. And one of the things I want to caution people on is that you do not necessarily want to use the blood moons to fulfill all of the references in the New Testament to a moon like turning to blood, because there will be a circumstance where the sun will misbehave, and because of dark matter around it, shielding in clouds and whatever it will form or will move through as a solar system, these will create lower light levels, almost going dark, which in that low light level will illuminate the sun in a blood red, a deep red color. And this is an astronomical event versus the blood moons, which are symbolic events when the Earth's shadow covers, the moon. It's for them to come together like this is symbolic, and it's a sign to us. But it's not the same event as the moon turning to blood and the sun not giving its light and looking like it's passing through a sackcloth of hair, that kind of stuff. They're two different events. That's about all I'd say about that.
So, Stan, to summarize, what you said maybe before, you are expecting the entrance of that are you expecting the entrance of that final covenant with Israel, as mentioned in Daniel 9? Is that what you're expecting this year?
The covenant, whether it will be, well. When you say the final covenant, certainly the one the Antichrist does to divide Israel could possibly happen this year. And
in the middle of it there's the abomination.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing about the abomination which makes desolate from the book of Daniel.
Yeah.
I've translated that over and over again looking at it, and I wonder, I'm not saying this is I'm positive, but I wonder from looking at it, it says in English, the abomination which makes desolate. Now, it doesn't say the abomination he which makes desolate, and leaves it open, but we know that the Antichrist of this age is going to use, he honors a god of forces, force, power, military power. Suppose that to settle the Middle East dispute between the Arabs and the Jews, he comes out and he says, look, I'm going to put an atomic bomb in the middle of Jerusalem, and I'll hold the switch. And if you guys don't quit fighting and don't do what I say, I'll melt down your holy places and make them desolate. Now, just a thought. And he would put it in the Jewish temple because obviously he hates Judaism and he hates Christianity. But bear in mind, this might be what happens. And I hope we're not here to see that day personally. But an atom bomb does make desolate. And when you see the abomination which makes desolate placed in the holy place, don't go for clothes, run and get out of Jerusalem. Well, okay, you don't want to be in the middle of an atomic blast. And God is certainly not going to put the holy city of Jerusalem, not going to occupy the corrupted one that we see today. He's going to bring the holy city and descend it upon that location. And if there's nothing there, that'll make a clean landing pad for when he brings the new holy city of Jerusalem down to the surface of the earth. Anyway, just a side thought. I thought I'd share that with you. You triggered that when you said that.
Yeah. But are you expecting that covenant? I mean, you said something, you're expecting something this year. What, and this is just, the result of your lifelong research, and I know that you're not prophesying now. So, yeah, just your opinion.
It's what I call a PEG, P-E-G, a
Okay.
partially educated guess.
Yeah, that's all of us have. At this moment, this is what I think.
Yeah, I got little removable pegs up on my bulletin board here, so I can take that down. So, whoops, wrong. Let's
That's
go to the
right.
next one. Yes, I'm looking at the circumstances in the Middle East. We know that the peace treaty will have to come into effect before America can be judged, and I think America is going to be judged this year. So I'm seeing that this will happen this year, and we know that this is already in place through the Obama administration making certain overtures, but also in what was done in the peace accords at Oslo, a couple of decades back.
Right.
But that's being revived. The new proposed division of Jerusalem, and of Israel and other places, is based upon the Oslo Accords, and they're reviving that. And the Oslo Accords, strangely enough, have a suck it and see period of 7 years. 7 years. And Shimon Peres had one of his political, behind the scenes, go for do it guy. He had Nimrod Novik go to Oslo and be part of the process of structuring it. And Nimrod Novik is still there in Israel, and he hates the Torah, the Bible, God, and all its holiness stuff, which he's been heard to say at a private party a friend of mine attended. So he may rise up and be the man who endorses the Oslo Accords on behalf of Israel.
And his name is Nimrod?
Yeah, what an appropriate name.
What an
Nimrod
appropriate... Whatever name there...
Look, I covered him in detail in my book, The Vindicator Scrolls, which is now out of print temporarily. But look at his name. Nimrod is like, in Hebrew, like a grapevine that ensnares and, Novik is. And Nimrod is, of course, the name of the original rebel against God that built the Tower of Babel. And he was born, this guy Nimrod was born in a part of Israel on a select little, kibbutz, which was part of ancient Assyria, the Assyrian. Wow. And when you start to put the pieces together about this guy, and he's my age, he's approaching, I think he's 69 now, and he has been in the back seat of politics and corporate industry there in Israel for a number of years. He was the senior vice president of the Merhav Corporation, M-E-R-H-A-V, look it up, run by a former Mossad agent named Maimon. I think it's Yossi Maimon. And between the two of them, they controlled, up until 2 years ago, they controlled billions of dollars worth of corporations, Channel 10 and Jerusalem for sure, oil suppliers in South America, and then they also were buying up water rights to dams in Egypt and in Turkey and all around the region because they looked at water wars being the next thing before oil wars or energy wars. So all this was happening, and then Nimrod Novik and Yossi, they had an argument, and he left the Merhav Corporation. What he's doing now, I'm not being able to find much in the press. But because he knew where all the skeletons were buried as he was in the Peres administration advising Shimon, for his first year of being a PM there, and because Nimrod Novik was trained under the tutelage of Henry Kissinger in the United States, and he holds a doctorate from a U.S. university. This guy just, red flags go up about him, and he's behind the scenes. He's booked as a peacemaker trying to make deals, and you'll see the odd mention of it. So keep an eye on him. He may not be the Antichrist, but boy, does he have more qualifications than like an Obama. I mean, that's a joke. So watch Nimrod Novik. He comes in his own name, Nimrod Novik, to ensnare. And it's I'm going to have to update that book, that Vindicator Scrolls, here this year, if we have a year left, and share more information on this that I've discovered over the years that have passed. But watch him.
Yeah.
Your take on, I noticed you do not call them aliens. You call them
humanoids.
Demons or satanic beings. I mean, you don't call them aliens. I mean, that's interesting. And many people do call them aliens. Why don't you call them aliens, Dan?
Because the common colloquial interpretation of the word aliens is that they come from some other planet locally or interstellar, and that is way beneath what is happening. They are extraterrestrial, and so is God, for that matter. He doesn't dwell on Earth. But they are from a parallel universe. There are levels to that, where God dwells and where intermediates dwell. And these parallel universes around us, they come from an area right next to us, right here on Earth, but separated by, like a veil, if you wish, an energy veil. And there are ways to port across this using what Nimrod was trying to build in the Tower of Babel. By the way, Babel in the Middle East, Bab-El, means gateway of God. And it doesn't mean Stargate, it means gateway of God, which is a different location. It's more local, but invisible. And that's why I don't call them aliens, because it gives the impression that they seeded us as an experiment or something, coming over from wherever they live, or they've come to discover us, and that's all rubbish. They've been here since before the Garden of Eden, and God has cast a number of them down here permanently, and more are arriving each day, I'm sure, before the great conflict between God and His universe.
What are your thoughts on? What are your thoughts on the Nephilim?
On the Nephilim?
Yes.
Oh, they were fallen ones. If you look at the etymology of the word Nephilim, it's masculine plural, but those who were cast down from a high place. Now, it might mean those that were cast down for a high place who bred with the daughters of man and made the Nephilim as a byproduct, and they might well be interpreted as giants or big people because of the sterile nature of the crossbreeding. It produced superheroes of ancient legend, whether they were heroes or not, but super powerful beings. And I think the Nephilim were in that category. If we see them again today, it won't be the same ones. It'll be a new breed of Satan's minions, crossbreeding with our women, and possibly mixing male DNA from us with others. I don't know, but they are here. If they are here, they're only here because they have been reintroduced to the population through fresh beings that are being born. That's why all these abduction cases are saying they're particularly interested in the genitals and sexual reproduction things of the males and females they collect, and they've been running experiments to generate hybrids. I think also for the purpose of allowing certain types of hybrids to be born that can be easily occupied by disembodied spirits and controlled that way, so they can sense and do in this world like we do. It's a very complex subject, but aliens, no, they're not from just some other place coincidentally finding us here. They are the fallen ones, cast down from a level above us, right around us, through a veil that we can't see through, but they can see through down to earth.
Would you say that I've noticed that the Catholic Church has come out in official statements concerning what they call the aliens, and that they will be coming, they are expecting them, and that after listening to their gospel, all of Christendom will have to revise their own interpretation of the New Testament and the basic gospel message in light of of the new news that they are bringing us. Do you how does your understanding compare with that? I mean, and these are, that's supposed to be the leading Christian organization on the planet.
Well, look, I don't mean to offend a lot of Catholics, but the Vatican is not really representative of what a lot of the lay Christian people are. I mean, they've been raised that way. They have a basic belief that we agree with. That, Yeshua is the Son of God, of Hashem. But the Vatican has gone astray a long time ago. I mean, if you look in history, the history of the Vatican, the papacy, they've killed over 6 million Christians and Jews in Europe over the period of time because they would not convert to Catholicism, which is not necessarily Christianity, but the rest of the world thinks it is. The Vatican is going to be like the false prophet. It will endorse the aliens as our elder brothers from space, angels to be trusted, etc., etc. And in so doing, it will pervert the belief of many. It will mislead them, and even the prophecies of the Lords, of Fatima, the last one, the final prophecy, did say that one pope would lead the sheep astray of the church, and would betray them. And I'm thinking we're seeing that now. And it's interesting that you have a Jesuit pope now in power, because the Jesuits and the papacy were at odds for years and years. But anyway, I can see them forming a new world religion, because in 1978, I think it was, I even held a pamphlet, which I've got somewhere in my records here, which the Catholic Church started trying to get talks between Islam and Christianity together on a worldwide basis to form a global religion of common factors in their faiths. And to me, that is an abomination, but that's what they've been doing and are now doing, and holding annual meetings.
About the F-35, Stan, what's that?
Okay, there are a number of issues. I just wiped out something here. The F-35 is kind of the vanguard of the American air defense as a fighter plane, but it's the state-of-the-art type aircraft that Israel has just ordered from Lockheed Martin, probably, truth be known, probably a year or two back, because the F-35 has been in development for some time. And Israel is going to use this as its frontline fighter. Now, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I saw a video at an air show where the Russians were showing their version of an F-35. And this plane is like a game, a deal breaker in war. It's quite a frontline aircraft, and if you've ever seen a jet fighter, they fly in straight lines or arcs. They turn this way or that way. The Russian video of this was showing the pilots skipping, jumping like a pogo stick through the sky with their craft pointed upwards, bouncing around, turning around, going into a flat spin, stalling, pushing a button, all nice, and it was like total control in the pilot of that aircraft, doing things that even most of us who would like to dance could not do in the skies, and then taking off at supersonic speed and launching missiles and whatever. Well, the F-35 is being supplied to Israel. The pilots have been trained, or still being trained in Arizona here, but Israel has said to the U.S. government, not being totally trustful of them, we will only take the delivery of these if you will let us make certain parts of the aircraft here in Israel. Not wanting to be dependent upon U.S. defense and manufacturers, because in the long term, we know that the United States has made a big mistake in putting all of its flight inventory into one manufacturer, to one aircraft, to Lockheed Martin, to the F-35. If they take out Lockheed Martin, they take out all support for the F-35 in this country anyway. It is an interesting bit of technology, let me say, because in the photos that I've given over to Bonnie and Jean, the one that shows the F-35 in flight, in the sky up above the Earth, shows light reflections off of it that look kind of like a sheen. Not the letter sheen, but, a sheen off of a reflective surface, a very peculiar type of reflection. And it's like satin almost. And they have used a new kind of technique to build stealth skins on this, which I find remarkable, in that they're using a small little paint gun that is guided by lasers. So the spray from that paint gun generating little dots all over the surface of the aircraft. The spray is always perpendicular to the surface, no matter where it is on the aircraft. So that light or electromagnetic radiation will be reflected away in the same manner, like radar and stuff, in the same manner in every spot on that craft. So it's polarizing and building a little pillar of this material, that's always perpendicular to it. And that gives this peculiar sheen, or satin-like surface to it. I just find that, rather remarkable that you take that entire craft and all the bits and pieces of it and put it into a special type spray booth with electrostatics and laser guided, so that every little part of it the paint is standing out like a little tiny miniature, atomic sized pillar.
Does that visual have a functional result?
The visual picture we're looking at?
The visual. I mean, the visual is it looks like satin, but do those perpendicular paint microns, does it have a function? I mean, does it make them more stealth-worthy or invisible to radar? Or
Yes, it does. The reason it has that sheen or that satiny look is it's taking the light in and spreading it, sideways. And we're looking at the craft, just the picture I was talking about, from about, aft end sideways. And the area we're looking at, we see darkness in the visual spectrum. Yet we can see reflections at that angle from under the cockpit and one leading edge, but they're very small. And this is the whole idea, is to make a much more efficient dispersion of radar so that when it bounces off of the surface, it's bouncing off sideways and at angles that are, not going back to the radar receiver. Anyway, and all this being the height of our technological development, as far as people know, when these things, are met with flying saucers, with technology way, way beyond what we're doing, it's going to impress the folks all over the planet that these beings are, so super gifted with technology that they could push a button and destroy our air fleets and, our nuclear bombs and this and this and that. This is being put before us to let us think that this is the height of our technological development, and that anything that can beat it's got to be off-world. It couldn't be human. Just another one of those little contributory things to the great deception that is upon us. This craft has got an articulated thrust. At the back of it, you'll see where the aft portion of the burners. Actually, you can swivel that head. The pilot can move that independently of the aircraft, so you can go sideways, up, side, skip along. And it's even got a little trap door that opens underneath the pilot's cabin there at the cockpit to allow vertical thrust up and down. It can do incredible things, but it cannot perform like a truly electrogravitic flying saucer that can just dance circles around them and alter time in their field and everything. I still applaud the development of this, and that what they tell you publicly is at least 14 to 15 years behind what they're actually doing.
So this plane, because of its paint, it's invisible to radar?
Yes.
Wow.
There are certain types of radar that could be used from orbit and things like that. It might pick up a bit of it, but I doubt it. Radar is electromagnetic radiation. Light in the visible spectrum is electromagnetic radiation. Now, all electromagnetic radiation doesn't behave the same, physically on certain objects, but using the light that we see with our eye on this picture gives you an idea about the dispersion effect, that satiny effect, which doesn't make a clear, bright reflection. It's more like, dispersed or, faded out a bit. I don't know how else to explain that, but it's similar to what radar would see, and it's dark except for little small areas, and in a rapidly changing attitude to the radar detectors, this would be good. And you don't just have one radar thing going at a plane at once. You have a number of them, usually in a field that you're going to invade, and so you've got to be able to reflect, sideways disperse radar from all kinds of directions at once, above, left, right, underneath. And that's what this paint job does. But there are other ways, too, to make them stealthy by, at a subatomic level on the underneath of the craft or the top of it, where you mimic the sky above you. You have pixel receptors on the top that transmit down to the bottom of the craft to emit light that looks like the sky above them, point source light. So in essence, you turn it into a flying flat-screen TV with cameras all over the ship, and it make it almost invisible in the optical range as well as the radar range.
So basically it creates a picture of what's behind it.
Or above it or below it, yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. Wow, that's amazing. That's astounding. And like you say, this is being done to impress us so that when the really impressive stuff comes along, we'll be astounded that this cannot succeed against that.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, you know, if you've ever I don't know, have you ever been in a supersonic craft at all?
Not I.
No.
Okay. I remember from my days in the Air Force in jet training, you go zipping along at around, you know, Mach 1 or 2. You go to turn a corner, and you're going to be pulling 4 or 5 Gs as you go around the corner, which is enough to make you lose breakfast if you're not used to it.
Yeah.
I mean, you really get heavier, 5 times heavier. So these craft that can go hypersonic 2 or 3 times, imagine what happens when you try to move this left or right. You get a blood drain in the head or a blood rush, depending on how you're doing it. And it is very physically demanding to fly this, no matter how many stealth things you've got on it. With the saucer craft, with the electrogravitic craft, the field that drives the plane, or the saucer, actually penetrates every atom of the ship and the crew on board, so that they are linked together. So when a direction change occurs, there's no extra G forces to deal with, and they can be traveling at Mach 15, 16, stop on a dime, go left, you know, at an angle, and not damage the craft. If the pilot could survive a 9G turn in one of these craft, it's not sure the craft wouldn't fall apart, no matter how much structural thing we're doing. And that's why engineers would look at this and say, you can't have a half-mile diameter spaceship of some sort, because it would fall apart under its own weight, even if it wasn't moving. You know, it's impossible. And that's because they don't understand that you can have localized gravity fields placed maybe 30, 40 feet apart on a bigger craft. And with that localized gravity net, you don't suffer any sag or inertial fatigue in your, you know, the steel and titanium and stuff that hold it together. And all those moving together, it just makes, you know, it dances circles around what we have, and it blows the mind of the engineers to say, how could it be that big and still function?
And of course, it allows you to create, you know, what would look like flying saucers, basically.
Yeah, and also unusual shaped things, large, you know, rectangular shapes or cylindrical shapes. Using this technology, you can basically make a number of shapes and build those shapes around local gravitic fields, which are normally just for one flying saucer, but multiples of it. I've seen this in drawings from one witness, or in fact a couple witnesses down in Texas, which had a flyover near the Crawford Ranch for President Bush, and they showed divots like in a golf ball, but divots along a flat surface of a long rectangular shaped craft with no sound, no exhaust or anything. And these were gravitic nodes, you know, placed about 30, 40 feet apart to generate a gravitic web, if you wish, or a matrix, which keeps everything together. So we've seen them.
Wow. Now I got to get back down to earth here. So what do you think of the whole Crimea situation, and possibly, I think you even mentioned it, the possible, what this really could be is an exchange of Crimea for Syria?
Yeah, and as a backup to Cyprus as well. Obviously, Putin has stated that he's rebuilding the old Soviet Union, so that's why he's going after the gold and resources and military assets in Ukraine, which it will take after Crimea. I mean, it's just a house of dominoes, but that's why Poland at the moment is activating reservists and pulling them into emergency training to fight the Russians, because Poland used to be part of the old Soviet Union, and of course Yugoslavia or Serbia-Croatia. Everybody's kind of on guard because they're seeing this hungry bear coming at them through Crimea, through Ukraine, through Poland, and then into Serbia, which is, I mean, having all that access will give Putin a tremendous tactical advantage in the Middle East, and also against the United States. I
see him as an old KGB officer who wants to relive former glory. I mean,
he is so rich. He must be one of the richest men on the planet. He has villas that are each villa like $1 billion or more in actual cost. The guy is, he's walking on water as far as most of the old Soviet supporters are thinking. In fact, a lot of the new Russians. If you compare him to, his public image to Obama. Obama comes up a weak sister somewhere down the bottom, and here's a cowboy, John Wayne in Russia doing all this. That's what he's doing. He's rebuilding it, and he'll need that. I don't know how his relationship with Germany will go, but for Gog and Magog, I think Germany will have to side with him against Israel in the Middle East.
The West has behaved so badly, though. We have the track record of Iraq, failed in Syria, Libya. We have a track record of going in, destroying, destabilizing, huge civilian loss, set up with a puppet government under the banksters. Perhaps these countries will realize that whether they have to align with the plundering West or the abusive East, they might not think they have such a good choice.
Yeah.
I mean the recent vote, there are signatures being taken in Alaska to secede and join Russia.
Yeah, I saw that. They have 30,000 people signing that. I'm thinking, holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our own people might be so disgruntled with the present non-leadership that they, that Putin would actually look good.
Well, you laugh, but I think you're right.
Well, one thing that became obvious was that when Putin decided to go ahead into the Ukraine, and Obama came out threatening with sanctions. I mean, that just stank to high heavens, and and Putin obviously was not even bothered by it.
No, of course not. I mean, that's like the schoolyard bully,
Yeah,
Here, you can have my lunch, or I'm not going to let you have my lunch. That's my sanction on you because you're beating up on people that I like. And the schoolyard bully is going to say, right.
I mean, they're openly laughing at him. Did you see the video this morning where Obama finished a speech and nobody clapped?
I didn't see that, but we do know that the world is laughing at him, and that's an underscore for what I'm saying. He just does not command the respect that an Antichrist would.
No.
I mean, at this point, Putin has, he's strong. He's definitely going military. I don't think that he will be the Antichrist, but could be. But he will definitely, whoever the Antichrist is, be respected for his strength, his power, and his logic at solving problems.
Yes.
Well, his foreign policy is a joke.
Non-existent.
Right.
Let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you from a source that is not reliable as a true document, but it was used during World War II by the Germans and the Russians, called the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. It has nothing to do with Judaism, and I don't recommend it to people that are lightweights in trying to analyze it. It was a spurious document. But in there, the final conclusion of preparing the world for New World Order says that these plotters, whoever they were, would make the peoples of the earth so disenchanted with their governments that they would cry out for a new global leader with no ties to any religion, political structure, whatever. And that's where we are today. And so whoever drafted that document had a long-term plan that we're seeing emerge now.
Yes.
Finish now, actually.
Do you think there's any connection with what's happening in, Turkey and Syria? There have been reports in the last couple of days of skirmishes, bombings up there between those two countries and Crimea, and the failed attempt to destabilize Syria, and this missing Flight 370, which General McInerney states that he has sources that report it at least landing in Pakistan, but he says where it is now he doesn't know. Are they linked? Is there any link there?
I don't know. It is definitely a weird thing, this whole Flight 370 with all the cover-ups, even offshore, in Asia. One thing that I must caution people to tell their friends and neighbors about is this. If Damascus is destroyed, nuked or whatever, the blame's going to go on Israel, whether Israel does it or not. And whether it's, a Flight 370 with a nuke on it that does it or whatever, do not blame Israel. We know that the world is going to hate Israel hate Jewish people, hate the whole 12 tribes and the Christians in this time,
right,
particularly focused around Israel. And, with Russia's help to Syria, with Iran and Syria, with the stuff that Syria had dumped into it from Saddam's old arsenal, the area could destroy itself. I mean, Damascus could ignite a nuke by accident, or one of the separatists, could set it off in final defeat of Assad or whatever. I just watch that area. I don't know whether Flight 370 is directly involved, but certainly there's mischief afoot that will hit Damascus, and Israel will get the blame.
Yep, no question about it. Yep, that. And one of the things I think that Americans don't understand is that America, back when in better days, was the source of stability in the world. I mean, yes, we have all these arguments about being the world's policeman and all that, but the bottom line is a lot of people held back from doing things that they wanted to do because they knew that we would be unhappy. Like right now, even amongst the Arabs, the Saudis fear the Iranian government every bit as much as anybody else does. There is fear and instability in the whole Islamic end of the world. The same thing you see happening with the former Soviet republics that are looking at a new conqueror now that could very easily put it all back together. And, all that kind of thing, I think, is happening now because they don't see anybody that's going to enforce any kind of stability.
Yeah. Well, as I said, America's got to be taken now.
Yeah.
Stan, you have an aviation background. Would you say that this Flight 370, because planes emit a certain signature, whether it's commercial or military, that they could fill it with people and do the deed on Damascus with impunity, or any place else, because they can get into ports that military jets could not reach? Is that the danger here that you see?
Well, look, that's always been present. I mean, most of the major military powers of the world, when they want to put a surveillance or strike team within foreign borders, they will they'll take a commercial airliner and load it with their goodies and go in, because that's commercial. It's not military. It's the wolf in sheep's clothing type syndrome.
Right. Yeah, the civilian, putting your military assets in civilian locations or around civilians.
Yeah, and they do it. Hospitals that the Arabs use, as a base of missile launches into Israel. And of course, what are you going to do? Bomb a hospital to get rid of their site? You're a villain then.
And look at Lusitania and Pearl Harbor in this country. I mean, so much. I mean, those were, that's just what they did there. Load up civilians with military cargo, or allow an attack just to get what they wanted.
Yes, Stan, could you give all of your contact information once again for the benefit of our listeners?
Okay. Stan Deyo, STANDEYO, at standeyo.com. That's our website. That's my email, and the website is standeyo.com. If you go there in a few minutes, I'm just uploading just for the folks that wanted to see that